Hi, I'm Janika Ruuska, and this is Future Neuroscientist, which I will be. So I'm taking you with my journey while I'm studying neuroscience at the University of Helsinki. In today's episode, we are going to talk about personalities. Welcome to today's episode. Before we get started, I need to say that I was thinking, personality is really cool topic and I want to do episode about it. I will just quickly gather some information and that's it, and then we will start. But yeah, it's totally it's huge field. So this will be a brief, I would say, landing to the topic. So I hope that at least you will get some idea what is personality, but also I hope this will evoke some thoughts, maybe some questions you will continue with. So let's start with the mind map I was drawing. So here are some thoughts about personality, what came to my mind. First of all, we are humans and we are individuals, but we also have similarities with others. Or do we? Does it depend from the perspective? How we define things? Meaning, do we have same definition for things? Anyway, what comes to individual, we might be different in a group versus alone, meaning our behavior. Is that personality or result from the personality? Then I started to think, who am I? The core question. What is our core? Does it stay stable? To answer to the question, who am I need to practice self-awareness. How is my body and its sensations? How my mind works? How I think or feel? Also, what is my purpose? Okay, that is a huge question, so let's not go into that. I was also thinking, do I change as a person, meaning my self-development? Is the ability to change part of my personality? Lastly, I thought a person's preferences and what are the factors that influence into those, such as environment. For example, culture we are living in, our family who has raised us, peers with who we are growing up with. Also, biology has its effect, and sensory system which biology can shape. But it is also flexible, at least at some range. Preferences can change, right? So, really short definition for the personality is how we think, how we behave, how we feel, and how all this differs from other people. So, what makes us as us? And the main thing is this kind of should be stable throughout the lifespan. But the question is that true? So yes, it's actually generally believed that these personality traits are about stable throughout our lifespan. But also there is evidence that huge life changes, like dramatical ones, can shape those traits. So of course, when we talk about personality, we need to know how to measure it. What are the categories there we can use? Model which is widely accepted to use to maybe not measure but have some structure or kind of some definition about personalities is 5-factor model, which I will talk briefly next. It's also called Big Five. And surprise, there are 5 categories or domains of personality. These 5 domains are openness to the experiences, so openness. The next one I can pronounce, so I'm sorry about it, but I will actually explain this a bit more so you will know what I'm talking about. So let me try. It's not consciousness because it's a different word. But yeah, I will write it down here. Then we have extroversion. Oh my, I love English. The third one is called agreeableness. And the last one neuroticism. Yeah, okay. Thank you for understanding that I have, especially today, problems of pronouncing, but let's continue. So these, if you have a hard time to remember, especially after me trying to pronounce these, the first letters of these domains form a word ocean. That's a good tip to remember things. So next I will quickly define these a little bit deeper. So the first part of this 5-factor model was openness to the experiences. So shortly, it's basically describing, is the person willing to try new activities? Also kind of openness to the new ideas and new beliefs. So I would say kind of able to keep mind open. And the second one, which I couldn't pronounce, consciousness, I will again write it, but basically it means that the person is aware of the person's own actions and behavior and how they might affect the result, maybe another person. Person who have high scores in this are described to be really goal-oriented and also really well organized. The third one, called extroversion, is describing how outgoing the person is, how social, how talkative. I would bet that quite many of us knows this extrovert versus introvert, and then there is between a person called ambivert. When I was reading the material, it was saying how well kind of person enjoys about this, how like if I would enjoy a lot to be around the people, then I'm more extrovert. But then I was also thinking that an important point what comes to extrovert versus introvert is that from where you get the energy. So even though I would be really social and enjoy to be around the people, really talkative, but still I might get the energy when I'm spending time alone. So am I then more introvert? I would say that if I get the energy from being alone, I'm more introvert. But let's move on. The fourth one was called agreeableness. So these people who are high in this category are really cooperative, and they tend to do the pleasing the people. So they trust and help people a bit more easier. And the last one, which I also had a bit hard time to pronounce, neuroticism, but yeah, it's basically also called emotional stability versus instability. So it's describing that one. And if you have a high score in this, you are probably a bit more overthinking things, maybe a bit more fearful, maybe worrying a little bit more. I would say maybe analyzing the risk more and kind of reacting into that. And when I went through all these, I kept in my mind that, yeah, this should be kind of stable throughout the lifespan, as it was described in the description of personality, but still big life events can affect those. This got my head a little bit mixed, but then I continued. So the next one, what I will say, it's not too scientific, but because I think this test, what I will soon mention, is kind of working as a tool for your self-awareness. So if you are gonna do this, I highly recommend you to take this just as a tool, not that this will describe you as a person, but maybe like a more understanding about yourself. Many of you might have heard of the test called 16 personalities, and I will soon tell you why I will not say this is really accurate or that really scientific. I will soon tell those, but first I will tell what happened to me. So basically it's test in the internet, it's free. It takes around 10 minutes to complete. But yeah, I enjoyed to do this test because it makes me to think, how am I as a person? So more self-awareness. What are the things I enjoy? How I will behave with the people? So I got exactly the same personality result as I think 1 year ago. So it was quite interesting that, yeah, okay, still these things are kind of true. But anyway, I can tell you my result. So my result was protagonist, ENFJA, if you want to check that. Maybe you get some image, but please don't put me into the box. Let me explain myself, as I recommend you to do yourself too. So how I would describe this test, so 16 personalities, even though now the result was the same, let's see in 10 years if it's still the same, I would say it's more like measuring the current state of my behavior and interests, which may kind of describe me as a person, maybe part of my personality. But I also think that some of those might change. And what comes to this test, why I wouldn't say these are really accurate, is because, of course, they are sentences they are saying, and then you put yourself somewhere in the scale. It also depends how we understand the question, how we understand the answer. So, for example, there wasn't a question like this, but if someone would ask me, do you feel anxious around people? So then when I think this whole picture, it's like, okay, anxious. What that actually means. Does it mean same to you as it means to me? And can I say that I'm highly anxious? What means highly anxious? The other factor is that it depends also from the situation. So maybe around the people who are making decision about my future, maybe career-wise, versus new possible friends. And could it also depend how well I slept today? Have I some other stress factors in my life? So a lot of things are creating variation to these answers. And even we would try to think that what is my basic state, these life factors ongoing might affect to the answer we are giving. But one thing what I was also thinking when completing the test is that the test is in English. So there is a lot of variation also in the language, how I understand the questions there, how I would express myself in my own language. So going back, I would say it's more about the current state of our behavior and interests, which can be also describing something about our personality. But mainly I would use this as a kind of self-awareness tool and not put anyone into any kind of box. When I was Googling this topic, I came up with the name Dario Nardi, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, professor in UCLA, and he has written a book called Neuroscience of Personality. I can't recommend it yet because I haven't read it through, but at least this name came up quite often, so I think I might check that later. And the moment when I realized that this is a huge field, I also came up with the Cambridge University Press, where they have this personality neuroscience from where you can find the articles. The last words in today's episode I want to say is brainstorming with you a bit. So if we imagine that we are behaving in a certain way, are those kind of habits of us? We have learned those. We have learned to behave and maybe feel in a certain way in certain situations. So then we have this habit. And then we maybe see another habit and we might notice that, that is working also. So we become aware and other possibilities. So maybe the next question would be, should we take that habit to ourselves? So should we change our current habit? So I think the main question behind that is, how do we benefit from that? So kind of what are the pros and cons? And if we feel that, that's really rewarding, we might start to think how to get there. So we use a certain type of reward system, but we also know that it's possible to shape those patterns. One method to use is called Pavlovian conditioning. That's totally another topic, which I believe I will cover it at some point, and maybe some of you are really familiar with that. But I want to mention it, that it's possible to use that to learn to get reward from some other things. So taking all this together, we have a habit, which is kind of our way of behaving and maybe thinking and feeling, but it can be also changed. So what is the personality there? What makes us us? So I started to think, what makes us even to notice that there are other possibilities? and to seek more reward. So I will not say that this big 5 wouldn't be accurate. It's widely used, but I'm just thinking, what if there is only 2 things which are actually about personality and these other things are kind of just telling about our behavior, not what we actually are in, what is our core. So 2 things. What shift our attention and what makes us to change things? What is rewarding? So maybe from those big 5, I would say the first 2. If those are more about the personality and the other ones are more about how we are behaving because of our personality. Or is the behavior also personality? I will leave you with these questions. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. See you on next time. Bye.